Hi, welcome back to everybody that's watching this. We couldn't be here last week, so I guess hopefully this episode kind of makes it up for last time. What we're trying to do in this conversation, in today's conversation, the Recruiters Lounge, is to essentially build on the conversation we had with Mansi last week, and maybe answer some very specific questions candidates tend to have when it comes to the recruitment um, or the talent acquisition process. So we have a bunch of questions that we constantly hear, that we constantly get from candidates, and we're just going to be taking some time to answer them today for you. After any thoughts from your end?
No, I think it's great to restart and go into in depth about the questions that we've received, and yes, we'll take it ahead from there.
Perfect. So the very first question that keeps coming up multiple conversations is essentially, how do you stand out in an application pool, right? Recruiters and evaluators often screen more than 100 candidates, 100 CVs for any particular role. Um, what are the uh, what are the ways a candidate can essentially stand out in that larger number? What is your answer, Raffi?
Sure. So I think we do generally get this question a lot. So I would say one that we start modifying our resume CVs according to the role that we're applying. We do not send a generic CV everywhere. Second is use very strong keywords and more keywords that are very relevant to the job description. If there are 10 keywords that stand out, use them in your CV and then send it across. Third is be very specific in the work experience that you've done in your CV. You cannot be generic in your responsibilities, like handled marketing project. You have to show that okay, this was the 3x that it grew in 6 months for the X project, is something that you can write. Also, fourth is that a referral plays a very strong role. If you are in the same organization, some if your candidature comes from a credible employee or a person, it will play in your favor. And lastly, I think you should do your research by what the company is doing, or what role is it exactly, and how will you add value. And in that context, if you can add something as a part of your portfolio, you can attach a link in your CV that this is the project that will add value to this role or the organization. I think it will really holistically make your profile stand out from everywhere, is what I think.
And I think for me, it's like plus one to everything you've said. But quick highlight on just being able to articulate your impact in your previous roles in a quantifiable way, using the right keywords and sort of tailoring your application and your CV specifically for the roles that you might be applying into. If you're in a very generic sort of, if it's, let's say, in the line of work that you're in, if your career trajectory looks pretty set, and if you're not trying to move lateral, then it's slightly more easier for you. But if you're trying to move lateral, then and try out your hands with multiple different other kind of roles, then it might be a little bit more effort. But nonetheless, that customizing your CV to the uh, JD, I would
Obviously.
say, is going to really help you stand out, regardless of how you're sort of shaping your career trajectory.
Correct. I agree. So, should we move on to the second question?
Yes.
So, second we have is that is it important to follow a certain template to draft your CV?
Okay. Okay. That's a great question again. Something that people often all the time ask all the time.
Yeah.
There's no Using a template is an easy answer for sure. Although there's no one standard template that, let's say, I would say that I have personally a preference for. Anything that is clean, that is able to convey the message sufficiently, but also is able to show, leave a certain impression on you, right? If it's too cluttered, or if the information architecture isn't good, then the likelihood of that CV getting selected is not going to be high. So rule of thumb, I would say one pager. Cram it with as much information as you possibly can, and also be ruthless with removing bits that you don't feel is relevant in order to fit that one page. Leave something for the recruiter's curiosity, the hiring manager's curiosity. Let them ask questions. So
Yeah.
just have like two, three high impact points from each one of your stints that you might want to call out.
Yeah.
And I would say the answer is more on structuring of it rather than the CV formatting of it. It's
Yeah.
more like how are you able to tell a story of your career that you've had so far. How did you move from one role to the other? How your responsibilities have sort of evolved over a period of time. That is what typically we'd like to see in a CV, outside of just the aesthetics of it, of course.
Correct, correct. 100%. I think you give an impression about yourself from the CV on how organized, how much effort you're putting on the CV is something that everybody notices. So I think there is a certain amount of time and effort investment that has to be done and not restricted to a particular template, but yeah, just like ensure that everything is covered and it's more neat and communicative about your experiences.
Absolutely. Now, sometimes the CV format can also differ depending on which roles. If a communications person, if they have slightly more colorful or like uh, a CV that is a lot more vibrant, then that's kind of acceptable sometimes. But if you're a quant specialist doing numbers, then the expectation is that your CV will just focus more on your work. So whatever helps you sell your story better, do it. But
Yeah,
just make sure that it is not too cluttered. It's not more than a page.
yeah,
People don't have a lot of time to go through,
correct.
multiple pages of your work.
Do we move
Now,
on to the.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Now, in terms of just as a follow up on that, typically people want to understand what are the soft skills a recruiter or a hiring manager is usually testing them on, or rather, what soft skills will get them get them through to the next rounds in the evaluation process. So for that, I think my answer typically is as long as you're able to hold your ground on in certain stressful situations, more often than not, interviews are a stressful environment inherently.
Yeah.
So if you're able to treat it like a conversation, if you're able to double click, articulate better, what your career has been like, what are the things you like to do. As long as you have those deep introspection, that clarity of thought will kind of come through. And as long as the clarity of thought is there, uh, there's no particular um, soft skills per se. It is more on confidence, your articulation, your ability to hold a conversation. That is essentially what gets you through the evaluation process. But do you have another opinion? Finn?
Mm, yeah, I think I agree to what you're saying. I think it falls under the umbrella of communication. How well are you communicating? Um, in the context of like junior people and senior candidates, I think it's more around technical and then leadership. So there are technical skills that are assessed, but soft skills wise, it is mainly how are you able to convey your thoughts. And in senior candidates, it's more about how are you taking that conversation, how are you leading the whole conversation and selling your story. And if second is if case is given to you, how are you able to think? So how are you able to break down that problem and how are you able to structure that problem and come up with an answer. So in that moment, how much of a problem solver you are, how much of a critical thinker you are, and being able to like connect it with how can you communicate. So I think more or less I've heard that this is the major umbrella soft skills that are being assessed parallelly. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, on that note, like on that presentation kind of note, how how important is it for one to have a updated LinkedIn profile, or how what is the role that a good LinkedIn profile plays in the evaluation process, right? Um, what is your answer to that?
I think in today's world where it's just very easy to go and look up someone, I think it's very important to put an effort to update. I don't mean to say that you update every single detail or make it comprehensive, but just like update every basic KRA that you're performing, where are you currently, your location, the project that you're doing, etc., will add as a plus only for you. If you don't do it, I think you might just lose on the opportunity just because of that. But why not? Like I'm always like, why not just
Yeah.
add it as a plus to your profile. And if somebody looks up to you, yeah, they will think about it. Yeah, okay, let me just speak to the person. So once somebody's gone through your LinkedIn, should go back thinking, okay, I want to have a chat and let's see where this goes. So I think leaving that impression through your profile is important, is what I think.
No, absolutely. I think it's an addition to the CV, right? It doesn't substitute it, of course. But I think uh, the advantage a LinkedIn profile has is that you can add a lot of things. There's no word limit on it. Um, things you cannot add on the CV, you can add on the LinkedIn profile, and to be able to showcase yourself and your range of skill sets. Um, a good LinkedIn profile also helps you get headhunted better. Um, Helps recruiters reach out to you, help hiring managers and other companies reach out to you.
Yeah,
So the inbounds are slightly better if you're using the right keywords, you're keeping your profile updated. So increasing the likelihood of you landing uh, the right the right job for your profile. And also use it. I personally use it to um, navigate internal stakeholders, right? So every time I have a new candidate, instead of forwarding the CV, I forward the LinkedIn profile
yeah, correct.
because that um, on WhatsApp or on Slack or something like that, that
Yeah,
sort of has a callback value often. That hey, I saw this profile. Um,
yeah,
I'd like to do what happened on that role or what happened to that candidate. So people ask back. Uh, I think that's a good thing to have, especially in a recruitment process from a candidate's point of view.
correct.
CVs, although they serve a very legitimate purpose, which is in the evaluation, you are evaluated based on what you've written there. In the conversation, you are evaluated based on the CV. Getting you that callback, the likelihood of you getting that callback, it's just there's a lot less friction if you internally if you have a LinkedIn profile. So that's I would say keeping it updated, keeping it polished, um, adding all the relevant keywords is super important.
Super important. Yeah, I agree.
And I would say like one of the other top questions that's constantly in candidates' minds is what are some of the reasons for early reasons for candidates to get rejected. Of course, the late reasons are, I would say, a lot more complicated. It boils down to very specific role
Yeah.
fitments. But the early reasons, either at the recruiter level or the first round, what would those reasons be uh, typically in your experience?
Uh, so my answer would be in contrary to my first answer as well. Uh, if your CV absolutely, if you're, let's say for example, if you're applying for a marketing role, and but as a part of your current role, you are an equity strategist, it will not, there will be no relevance. Or even there are like vast differences in the roles also that you play. If you are an execution person or you are a strategic person, let's say you've applied for the role of marketing but you're more on ground execution person, we're looking for more of a strategic team manager leadership person, even that will not, because you will have to highlight more of that. So one is, um, if it is irrelevant work experience. Second is if you have a lot of gaps. Third is if you've been a job hopper. Fourth is if your gaps are not well justified. I mean, um, if you're a dropout or you took like a 2 year gap, it's not mentioned of why is the gap happening. Again, there's a gap between work experience. You've been switching jobs, you've been switching roles, so you're not adding expertise to your core skill set. I think these are a few reasons that will, if your CV doesn't make sense to yourself, I think you're most likely to get rejected.
At +1, I think it's more about storytelling. Like the gaps or the randomness is inherently not the problem. If anything, it's a plus, I would say.
Yeah,
But as long as you're able to one show that you drove results in each one of these roles.
yeah,
How are you able to articulate it into your CV? And three, how are you able to craft that narrative in a conversation, right? Have you really thought about your career? It's okay to have the first 3, 4 years of your career doing random things. You don't know what to do, you're too young. But
yeah,
after that, if you've done random things, that's also fine. But know why you're moving from one place to another. Um, what are the opportunities and challenges that you were seeking?
yeah,
Um, and having a good articulation of that would be expected from a more senior person. On the junior side, I would say, um, yeah, it's just be very clear about why do you want to do this, any job. Why is it that uh, this particular job is of most interest to you or relevance to you? Uh,
yeah,
it can also be a personal story that you personally like this thing because of some XYZ reasons. That's also a great. That's also a legitimate reason. It's
yeah,
just that have a good articulation of that in the interview ground. Outside of the CV, just have a good articulation of that in
yeah,
your for your interview round as well. But
yeah,
that's I would say largely the early reasons why you would get rejected. I think it's a summary of everything else we've spoken
correct.
about so far. Just being able to structure your CV, having a good LinkedIn, having
Yeah,
good comms being a factor of how well you've thought about yourself, the role that you're applying into. Why do you want to apply into it? If you have gaps, if you have other handicaps, so to speak, in your CV, if you don't have a bachelor's degree, if you don't have a maybe specific relevant master's degree, whatever it is,
yeah,
as long as you're able to explain it away through in a conversational sense, or you're able to show some demonstrated work experience for the role that you're kind of applying into, typically works out for the best.
yeah.
Do you have any other sort of parting thoughts? After I think these are some of the typically the top questions that's on uh,
Mm,
a candidate's mind. Outside of that, have you heard of anything else that you would like to, at a very high level, address with the candidates? Or if you had a candidate in your evaluation process, if you felt like, hey, if only I could meet this person outside of this call, I want to tell them something that'll maybe help them out with uh, future job searches or the current job search. What would that be? What is that thing?
in general, what I want to share is that candidates are too much behind knowing feedback of the interviews. And when I've shared the feedback, they will start defending, they will start countering that no, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. I think might as well be okay with not having feedback also. I know, I think it's a very controversial statement, but I think being okay. I know it is candidates' right to know the feedback, but in my experience, whenever I've shared feedback, it just ends up in some low key, heated, intense monologue. So rather, I would say just don't be behind feedback. Just reflect by yourself and
Yeah.
what do you
Or
think?
take feedback in for what it is, right? I think what
Yeah,
candidates need to understand is it's like, hey, maybe you might be really good for the job, and for all we know, we are missing out by not hiring you, but you weren't able to install that confidence in the hiring manager or in the hiring panel in that period of time, right? Um, Now, whatever the reasons might be, it could be circumstantial, it could also be poor evaluation by the team. by the
Yeah.
hiring team. Um, but regardless, you wouldn't want to work there if, let's say, they're not able to evaluate you properly. Then there's no point in working for in that
Yeah.
company. Um, or if they were able to evaluate you correctly, and if you feel like you were unfairly evaluated and stuff like that, that's again those are like indicators for you to you know uh, be reassured about the fact that hey, probably it's not meant to be, right? um, so sharing expecting feedback is fine, but how do you deal with it is the question. If you're just able to take it at face value, not attach too much of personal identity into it,
Yeah.
uh,
Exactly.
it's fine. um, but if you're unable to disassociate, then don't ask a question that you don't want to find out the answer
Yeah.
to, right?
Exactly.
So I would, yeah, that's a good tip.
Yeah.
But in my experience also, although sometimes it's gone bad, a lot of times it has gone good as well.
Yeah.
I think it's not it's not a blanket statement that all candidates take it badly, but um, yeah, I mean it's always like that 20%, 30% of the crowd uh, that
Take.
maybe
Yeah.
takes up a lot more of your time and energy,
Yeah.
which is entirely
I agree.
avoidable from all perspectives.
Yeah. I agree.
But
I feel we
one,
can. Sorry.
no, no, finish it.
No, I was just saying maybe we can, yeah, wrap it up and take
Correct.
further
Yeah, that
questions.
was correct. I think this is largely some of the top questions that candidates have asked us over the years. Now, if there are more, happy to sort of spend some time answering them, maybe in a future conversation. But for now, I think this is a good startup pack for
Yeah.
anybody that's currently on a job hunt.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for making time, Afrin. Thank you for also helping sort of uh, put together these questions, and hopefully it gives people some leading indicators on um, how to structure themselves, how to better prepare for an interview process. Um, but
Absolutely.
all right, have a great day.
You too. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.